This meeting is being recorded.
Not connecting to the phone.
Okay, so I can see some of you are having some challenges with your microphone.
I don't know why the headphones aren't working.
I think they are working because we can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I was talking to my husband. I'll mute myself.
So if you can mute just for this session, we will absolutely have lots of opportunities for you to ask questions. Okay. The best place is through the chat. But first of all, sure. I just wanted to really welcome everybody.
Oh, actually, the only thing I don't want to interrupt, actually, but I am. Is it worthwhile turning our video off because of the feed? I mean, it might be faster, or should we just turn our videos off?
It shouldn't matter. We're all on high speed. So if you are finding that your own video is kind of pixelating, if you turn your own video off, that's probably your Wi-Fi that's slow.
Okay, cool.
Because it's nice to see people's faces. So welcome to our orientation. For people who don't know me, I'm Kate Taylor. So I'm the chair of the Artist Network. And I'm really, really excited, as I'm sure all of you are, to be able to see people in person, have a show that's in person, and actually be able to connect with our art lovers and art buyers in the park again this year for the first time in a few years. So I just wanted to say that if anybody has any questions, we will be taking a lot of questions at the end of the session. But if you want to put them into the chat room, we will be monitoring that as well. So if for some reason your questions don't get answered, then please bring them up to the top again. For people who don't know, we're going to go through all the logistics and the sort of high-level marketing and things that will allow you to do the show online as well as do the show in person. There is a separate marketing session tomorrow if you'd like to join that will kind of go into more detail on how to sell and tips and tricks from artists who have done this a billion times so that you can kind of go out there and be super prepared to be awesome. And I'm now going to turn it over to Angela Lane, who is the executive director and our outdoor show advisor, and Samantha, who has been doing all the hard work to make sure this show is a super success.
Yeah, well, welcome everybody. I'm so happy to be here. It looks like we have a lot of people tonight, so that's awesome. I don't know how many new artists we have. Maybe just pop in the chat there if you're new. It just gives us an idea if you've done some of our outdoor events. Again, and please don't be shy to pop in the chat questions. But if you're a new artist, just kind of give us an idea of who you are. If you haven't done any of our outdoor shows yet, it gives us a good idea. And just to cover off a few housekeeping rules, I think if we can just try to keep muted, but if we do open you up, ask you to bring up your question or chat, we're going to have an open Q&A at some points throughout the session. By all means, you can unmute yourself, just try to remute yourself again. This is going to be recorded. We're going to post it up on our YouTube channel, so you will have an opportunity to take a look at it again at another date. As well as there's, I think, a lot of people who've reached out to us already who can't make it tonight, so not to worry, it's being recorded. Samantha, do you want to maybe flip over to the orientation?
There we go.
Or sorry, the agenda orientation.
There it is. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
So we're going to start off for those who are online only. We've changed our presentation around a bit, so we'll cover off some marketing content first, and then we'll get into the events and the online profile. Everybody in the show has an online profile and can promote themselves online, and then there's the majority of people who will be in person, but just we put the online content up front. So if at that point you want to leave because you're not an in-person artist, you're more than welcome to, but there's always lots of benefits for staying on and staying connected and hearing other wisdom and tips and tricks in regards to selling your work in person. Maybe you're at another in-person event. So we're going to start off with marketing. Samantha, if you want to forward there. So this is just our Riverdale ArtWalk website. This is most of our marketing is going to direct people to this website, and that very quickly and easily links to our artist online profiles, our artist gallery, as well as our event and the online event page. So there's a visitor page where there's information about the event. We'll have updated maps and content there. So this is the website, riverdaleartwalk.ca, that we're going to drive most traffic to, because everything will link off of this page.
And you guys should also drive the traffic to there.
Yeah. This is sort of what the Events Me page looks like right now. It starts with a header. We'll probably have a video in there, some images, and then some information about the actual event, some highlights, and then it gets into all the artist profiles and map. So the map for the event will be resting on the Events Me page. And again, there's direct links from that Riverdale ArtWalk site to this event page. The marketing gallery. So this is, right now you guys haven't been sent this yet, but you'll get this later this week. And really what this is the artist gallery for the Riverdale ArtWalk. It's new this year. So you'll be able to build a profile here. It's at the top of our website, and you'll be able to, you will be profiled on this, in this gallery automatically, but you'll have to build that profile. So you'll get an email link from us. We've created postcards. They're available for pickup at the gallery, just regular gallery hours. We're also going to be sending newsletters out in the upcoming weeks. So we have a newsletter campaign, we have Facebook campaign and Instagram campaign, but we're asking you to actually pick up some postcards and distribute those in your location to your friends and help spread the word. We've actually sent out, and we've already distributed thousands of these at the Artist Project, the recent Artist Project.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is many of you might be doing art shows between now and the Riverdale Art Walk. I know I've got a few of them, so it's always great to be able to use these postcards there to drive people from one show to the next one. And I've actually also, in my neighborhood, it's a good art buying market. So I just actually kind of, go and pop them into local mailboxes as well. It's another way of doing it.
Yeah, so we will have a mailbox drop, like we'll be doing a postal code drop on this with this particular postcard. But yeah, that'd be great if you could do that in your neighborhood. We do have a marketing package coming soon. You'll learn more about that later this week. We're just finalizing some details about that. Additional opportunities for you for Instagram ads, as well as just for some artist interviews, blog TO, and the Globe online ads. Kate, what else do you think that we're going to include?
Yeah, so I think what we're going to do for this is we're going to actually segment it into two opportunities. So first of all, we want to let you know that if you post us and tag us on Instagram, we will do the best we can to share it. Obviously, we have to make it sensitive of our algorithms. But the more that you promote and the more that you promote other artists in the show, the better we can try and help you. So what will happen is there'll be a marketing package that will allow you to kind of access all of the Artist Network properties, which is our 3 Instagram sites, our Facebook, our paid Facebook ads, as well as artist interviews. And then there will be another package if somebody wants to kind of take that investment a little bit further with being part of our digital program that will be on Blog TO and the Globe and Mail online. So that will come out later, but it's really just how much you feel comfortable investing in the marketing to drive people here. But know that we will also be doing a lot of marketing on our own and on your behalf.
We also have another opportunity to get exposure throughout the event, and we do this online as well as in person at our show, and that's really our I Gave Art Draw. And it's a really great initiative because it gets you profiled in a wall near the information booth with your art, helps drive a bit of traffic to you, and also promotes you online, but it also helps us build and draw traffic to the event. Also builds our ongoing communications list. I mean, we all know how much our email address or our email addresses are gold, and this is how one of the ways that we build our list. So how it works is you'll just actually sign up for it. We'll send out a thank you for attending to all the entries into the contest afterwards, and you'll be linked in those communications. You'll have an I Gave Art sign if you're in person in your booth that will help remind people of your contributions as well. So it's a great initiative. We've been doing it for years, and it's a lot of fun. Kate, do you want to just take over for a little bit?
Sure. So partially this is what the Artist Network will be doing. As Angela said before, we have our our newsletters and stuff that go out to our thousands and thousands of subscribers. But the other thing too is that we know, as an artist, I can tell you that the people that subscribe to your newsletter are really the ones that are really your art lovers. They're the ones that are committed to you and you've got an authentic relationship with them. So this is an opportunity for you to really touch base and kind of promote the show to those people. And it's better to do it more than once. People get busy, they forget, and make sure you can kind of tag all the information that's going to be happening, including things like new work that you might have there, highlighting if you're doing the I Gave Art program. If you have a draw that's going to be at your tent, then all of those things help to drive traffic to your tent. Also really critical, there's obviously a lot of people are going to find this event through social media, through Instagram and through Facebook. So we have provided customized templates for you to be able to use. So with something like this, you just pop in your own work to personalize it, which is great for a number of ways. Is first of all, the Riverdale ArtWalk and image kind of comes through consistently on all the graphics. So people start to kind of identify that with the show, even though you're also promoting your own work at the same time. It's also a great opportunity to be able to, again, tag us so that we can kind of forward it, share it with your friends, tag other artists you know are doing the show, because it's kind of, rising tide floats all boats. As we help everybody, then everybody kind of gets more attendance to the show. So these are the Instagram ones. We have the one that is I'm officially part of it, so you don't have to do anything. For people that just can't quite figure out how to kind of insert their own logo, or else you can insert your own. And don't forget to tag us at Riverdale ArtWalk. Follow us at Riverdale ArtWalk and tag Riverdale ArtWalk in your tags.
Yeah, and if you can follow all the other Artist Network channels, I think Samantha shared those with you, or they'll be in the Artist Handbook, as well as I think Samantha sent some of those graphics out already. Sorry, I just had a lot of noise outside my window here. So thanks, Kate.
Yeah, so with Instagram as well, it's the more you post, the more you build that kind of attention, the better off you're going to be, and the better off that people will kind of see the show, not only for yourself, but for the other artists that are participating. One of the things that I personally found that people just absolutely love to see are the things in progress. So if you've got, blank boards that you've got there that you're going to work on that are going to be for the artist project, if you're doing edges, if you're packing your car, if you're buying your new tent, like things that to you seem like they're kind of weird because they're part of your normal day-to-day life. People don't know the day-to-day life of an artist, and it's got a little bit of mystique there. So it's kind of great to be able to share some of that stuff. By tagging Riverdale ArtWalk, when people search Riverdale ArtWalk, you can see here's an example of all the things that are going to come up. So that gives you a second opportunity to get some exposure. I would make sure that you probably try and do at least one live story if possible. This is again where the marketing package will allow you to do that live interview, but you can absolutely do those on your own. Make sure you use 15 to 30 hashtags that are targeting what your customers are going to be looking for. So not necessarily what you're doing, but what your customers are going to be looking for. And then make sure you mix it up with pictures of you, with you painting, with your preparation, things like that. Use reels, tag reels, try and get sort of as varied as possible in your social media. Don't forget to link to Facebook, and then do a separate section of the same thing on Facebook. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. We also have Facebook graphics. So again, do the same thing as you would in Instagram, create your separate content for Facebook. The algorithm reads that differently. I'm assuming that we will probably be doing a Facebook event. And so therefore, link to the Facebook event, use that, share that, so your attendees and your followers know exactly where to find it.
Yeah, for sure. And don't forget to reach out to other people who are in the show. We have a closed Facebook group. So for those who are participating in our art walks as well, we have a member Artist Network Facebook group. And it's your neighbors and your friends are a wealth of information. And like Kate says, a rising tide floats all boats. So we all help each other out. And I think it's shown over and over that it's a really good resource for information and help. I think there's a couple of questions here. I think I scooted really quickly over the I Gave Art because all of a sudden I had a lot of noise coming by my house. However, I just want to clarify. So what it is, it's a donation. So you donate a piece of art, and then that piece is used for exposure in our communications as well as on site at the event. And then we have a draw, and that's how we kind of build our communications list. So you donate a piece of art. There's no size parameters or specifications around it. It just helps us build our list and promote the artists.
So someone has the opportunity to win your piece of art. So what I personally do is I usually donate a small piece that I'm proud of, that's nice, that's going to draw people to my booth. But I put a note in the back saying, you're free to take this piece, or you can kind of apply the cost of this particular piece to a larger painting. And it's a way of kind of potentially upselling and using the promotion of the I Gave Art to kind of leverage maybe bigger sales. There's a couple questions too about our tents and things like that, which I think is going to be coming up later. So don't worry, we'll cover that.
Yeah, for sure. We're just going to do the general marketing first, and now we're going to talk about Eventany. So Eventity is an awesome platform. It's getting better and better every year. This is just the general image from the actual event. So this is really the overall event. It's got pictures. Oh, and I think we just flipped over to an artist profile. That's fine. So this is the in-person event. It's got the map links. I think Samantha already brought up a slide for that. So we already quickly showed everybody that. That event is live as an event on the Eventity platform, but there's not a lot of content right now because the artist profiles aren't live until the actual event. So underneath, so if you actually click through on a Riverdale ArtWalk site, you'll click through and you'll land on this page. And if you scroll down on that page, you'll see artist listing, but they'll all be grayed out. And that's because this is a time where you'll build your online profile and online store, and that's what we'll talk about. I think some of you may have already started to do that, and that's awesome. And if you have some questions, we can answer them here, but we'll just quickly review a couple components about your online profile. So this is really your online store and your online presentation of who you are with the overall event. The Riverdale ArtWalk in person runs for a weekend, and then it continues, the Riverdale ArtWalk continues to run online for a week. So this is a profile here. So you can really, you want to sell yourself and show your personality. Kate's actually going to pull it up live. I think we're going to use her. Kate, do you want to maybe Samantha,
Yep.
you can start sharing, and Kate can share her screen, because I think it's easier for us to actually see a profile live.
Sure. Let me just, all right. Tell me when you can see it.
I think we can see it.
So this is the screen that will show up to the customer. So this is your front end of your business page. So I've put a video in here. I've got a couple of different videos. This is talking about process. It's not a particularly good one, but there's a better one there. But the first one I have in this series of videos will actually showcase my inspiration, what inspires me to paint, what I want the viewer to look at it, and then a couple of photographs. Here you will fit up to 4 pictures here, or you can just do one large picture that fits the whole screen if you want.
Yeah, and just a point that if you do upload a video, so later on we go into the business side to show that when you upload a video, it always takes that square area and that square spot. So if you don't upload a video, it would just be your first image. But if you do upload a video, it automatically takes the first video. You can upload more videos in your profile, but the first video does get profiled in this header. So it's really up to you how much content you want to put in the header. So
it's also really easy. It's also really easy to change it. So if you kind of go, oh, that wasn't where I wanted that picture, it's easy to move it around.
Yeah. So we'll go into that in a minute, Kate, but maybe just scroll down and just show them what their overall video, like it looks like. So it's got your general information.
Yeah. So it has here, you've got your, obviously your products that are available, links to your Facebook, your website, which is really important to kind of connect. And then your products that can be separated into different categories if you want. And these are all potentially for sale. So that's a great way of augmenting your in-person show sales with your online sales. So
with the Riverdale, with your artist profile, each artist is allowed to have 30 products available on their store. And that's just, we don't want to have overall fatigue, but give you enough so that you have enough variety to show. You will have a link to your website so people can continue to look at product on your website if they need to. So maybe we could just show them. So if you're ever trying to figure out and organize and edit your business page once you've logged in, it's always that little icon on the top right where it says view profile, account settings, message, my applications. And you've probably gone in there a few times and log out. So this is also where you log in. So you go to your account settings, and then you go to business profile. So in the center there. And this is where you're going to fill in all the content. So you can kind of see here, descriptions, and then some important stuff. If you just scroll back up a little bit, Kate, sorry, I just want to make sure that we hit this, just scroll. Oh yeah. So the videos are on the right-hand side. So the video tutorials, if you have any questions, Eventity's got created more and more great videos for you to look at. So we're not going to go in depth on adding all this content in because there's some really great videos here as well. You can reference all of our videos last year in regards to the Eventity profile. We went into quite a lot of detail, but this business page link, this is important. This is if you want to click to see what your storefront looks like, this is what you click. You click that, and that gets you back to that storefront. So you can visually go see, this is what it looks like. This is what I just did. This is what it's going to look like to the public. So you can copy it. That's the link you're going to copy and paste, put in your newsletter if you want people to go directly to your profile within the actual event.
One of the things that's nice if you're doing your newsletter is actually to do two links. One to show it your direct profile, because obviously you want to sell your own work, but also to show one to the show itself at an overarching, so people can scroll through and see the other artists that are there. So that's also helpful. So one of the things I just wanted to point out too is that within this business profile, this is where you're going to upload all your pictures, and you can see these are the pictures that are cover, and these are the ones that are shown up on that header page. So you can add lots of them if you want.
Yeah. So if you, so before we get into product, if you scroll up, I just want them to do the Canadian, there's a couple just in the very top. It's really important. You have to put your primary currency as Canadian. I think everybody here is from Canada, or if you're not, then you're US dollar, but the default is US. So if you don't change that, everything's going to be in US funds. So you need to take that, because it's a US platform. So you need to change that to Canadian funding.
And that will be right where you first set up with your personal info. I think that's where it is, right?
No, it was right where you were.
Okay.
In the business profile section.
All right. Sorry about that. It's been a while since I've done this one.
This personal information is what they've already done to create their application. That's probably already all done. It's basically their account. So the Canadian dollar, and then whether you refunds or not, and then your primary carrier, and that's really if you do shipping and you're going to offer shipping, then you have to choose a carrier. And then your Facebook link if you want, your Twitter, Instagram, whatever you want, those are all your links. But the most important thing is I just really want to point out that Canadian dollar, to not forget that, and then where your link is for your own profile, and just to visually see what your profile looks like, what your public profile is going to be. Those are really important things. And then the shipping is your primary carrier. That's where you actually select it. And then like Kate said, your cover images and all your pictures, you're going to upload that and have some fun figuring that out, which ones you want to profile. And then we get into,
and you can move these about. So for example, you want to change the order. I think when you edit them here, just really quickly, they're super easy to move around and, well,
or delete or whatever. Yeah.
Whatever you want to do with them. Sorry, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but it's easy to do.
And then we can just quickly show, just so there's no confusion, there's pictures uploaded, which are just pictures and images and content, but then there's products. So sometimes I had somebody last year, they put all their products in with those pictures and they couldn't understand where to put their product information, but the products, that's actually the items that you're going to sell, right? So that's up here, and so there's a new thing you can turn your storefront on or off, and this might be helpful for some people who are doing in-person event. You may want to turn your storefront, your online storefront off. Well, that's individual. So you can turn individual products off, but you can also on the very top, there's storefront is open or not. And that's an overall button. You can just turn your storefront on or off. And that's important after the event as well, because we've had people leave their storefront open and then forget that their storefront's open and sold here a month after the event, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But really it's after the event's done, you should probably shut your storefront off.
Unless you choose to use this as your e-commerce system, which you can.
Which you can do, yeah. So then you can continue to add. So this is where you add products.
I have a meeting, Steve, I forgot all about.
So, and then you can change do your sales tax here, and you can put things in categories. So there's a lot of information here about products. So I would really recommend you look at the videos, either the ones that we've done or the ones that Eventney has provided on site here. But this is just one product. Kate, if you just want to scroll really slowly just to show.
Yeah.
So you've entered a product image, and here's all the information.
So something that's important here, because I screwed this up the first time too, is the category is your choice. You can choose the category that you want to put the work into. However, if you put it into multiple categories, the same piece of art shows up multiple times, which not only is confusing, it also takes your 30 pieces, and it means that it's not great for the buyer. So create your categories, but only have your painting be in one category, not multiples.
Yeah, I would really recommend that. And I would honestly say 2 categories, maybe maximum 3 categories to show up would be great. And if you don't have any products, those categories won't show up. So Kate's probably fussed and changed the name of some of her categories. You can actually delete those. But
which I should.
But it doesn't really matter, because if you don't have any products, if you just have 3 categories, the categories won't show up unless you actually have product in them. So I would say 3 categories and 1 category per product. That's how I would do it.
Yeah.
Available for sale. The quantity, that's really listing, and that's for people who do prints. We do allow for a certain percentage of the 30 products on site to be not original. So prints of your work. And I think we say it's up to 20%. So that would be 6, I guess, right? 6 out of 30. Yeah. Something like that. So your price, your shipping type. So again, the shipping can be per image. So it could be your large pieces. You want to just have a flat rate for shipping. For your small pieces, that's fine. But then you don't want that to apply to your larger pieces. So there's some flexibility here. You can set your shipping on each particular piece. So that's something to point to kind of take a look at. And then there's a really nice button here that says allow the option to pick up instead of delivery. And that's kind of a handy thing, because if a buyer clicks that off in the store when they're purchasing something, they can choose to pick up, and then those shipping fees don't get applied to the piece. So you can choose to set that on or off. And then your dimensions of the piece. So people always ask me this: length, depth, width, height. And some platforms have different interpretations of this. I just go length and width as like the height of the piece, the width, and then the depth is just the height Kate's done as the depth of the piece. And I think that makes sense, because people usually see like the 2 large sizes first and then the depth last. So I think people are gonna like, this is a little bit confusing, the way that the eventing is titled, the product. Length, depth.
But ultimately, the important thing is that you've got your product measurement, and then you've got your packaging measurements.
Yes.
And they should correspond. You can see they do.
For shipping. Because if you remember, Kate had chosen FedEx as her primary shipping thing on the screen beforehand. So it actually uses the algorithms from FedEx to calculate this. Or if someone had chose a different shipping sender, then it would use those algorithms. So it actually looks at the actual package measurements. So it's important to put that in. Otherwise, the cost wouldn't be accurate to your end user.
Okay, and then save and continue. This is where you can put in multiple pictures. So it's always nice to have, obviously, a picture of the art. It's nice to see it in situ, and you can use things like art rooms or Photoshop to use your own. Some people will show the sides or the back so that people know how it's hung. So the more information you give to the buyer, the better it is for them to visualize the piece in their home. Variations are more for prints. So if you have prints that have, or if you have pieces that are framed or prints that are on different papers and stuff like that, this is where the variations are. For original artwork, that's not going to be applicable. And then you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. And it gets kind of complicated there. I think something you might do if you're going to use it longer term than a week. So I would say keep it simple for your buyers. All right. So I don't know if there's any questions we have on the platform. Maybe Kate, if you go back to account settings, account settings is where you generally go. There is one thing I'd like to point out. My orders is things that you purchased, but payments and payouts, that's where you're going to go to look at what has been purchased. So you can. No,
that's not. Oh, is that?
Sorry, this is your setting up your payout method. Sorry, I think it's the other place.
Yeah.
Oops. It is.
I think this is actually has both.
Sorry, my order.
This has what you've sold and then what you have purchased.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So this lists everything, and it shows you the gross amounts and the fees and the platform fees and all that sort of stuff. So you can really understand it, but you can actually export this data. So on the top right-hand side, when you export it, there's even more information. So it exports it into a spreadsheet that you can use. And
tell me if you can see it.
I don't know if you need to open it, but because it's going to show all your details. But anyway, it basically gives you even more detail than what's that you can visually see here on the platform.
And this is where your purchases. So if you've purchased stuff online as well, like I purchased David John's piece, then it will show up on this side as well.
Yeah. So the sales, that's a new thing actually in the sales print receipt. That's new. So Eventing is always adding new little features and updates. And so I think that's really great. And you can refund and cancel something as well, just if there was ever a problem, or you can send the email to you. So they've got some new features there on the bottom that they didn't have before. track payments. So that's great.
Mhm.
So I don't know if there's any questions. Just going to go look here if there's any questions in our chat about the Eventney platform, because then we're going to move on. For shipping, if you select self or in-person delivery, but specify that you only offer that in the GTA in the description, what are your options if the customer selects that but lives outside the GTA? I think, okay, so in that case, you've specified it. They might not have read it. You just reach out to your customer and say, oh, I'm so sorry that the in-person delivery only included in the GTA. Your shipping cost will be X, Y, Z. So you'll have all the contact information. You have to reach out to them. That's what
The other thing too is that I've had situations where they're assuming that they're coming to you to pick up the piece. So, you know, they might live in Hamilton, but they're coming in that weekend or something. So I have had situations like that too, where it doesn't look like they're going to be coming in, but they are coming into the city and they'll pick the work up from your location.
Right.
So.
And then there's a question about taxes. So there is the area where you said, I think you put your Canadian dollar. I think it's actually the tax section is now moved to the product section. So it used to be in the general. Okay, maybe we should just show that for a minute because it's important for people to set their taxes. If you go to the business profile, it used to be right here under where you said Canadian dollars.
Yeah, I mean, it must be here. It must be here.
No, I think it moved. So if you just scroll down, FedEx, Canadian dollar. So it's not there anymore. I think it actually moved to the products because I think unfortunately it's moved to the product above the very top of the product. I think sales tax. Yeah. See under product, then there's the general bulk import. And then right underneath there, it says sales tax and category. So click on sales tax. This is where, yeah, it used to be. So I'm glad someone asked that because that actually moved. So you add sales tax rate and you have to specify the tax rate that you're going to choose. So it's a little bit different. So the default again is the US tax rate. And in the US, it defaults to where the product's purchased from, right? Because they have different state taxes. So that's the actual default. So you do actually have, if you're charging tax, you need to go in here and set this. If you don't charge tax, you just put this at 0%, depending on your income level. Some people charge tax and some people don't, depending on what province you're in. I tend to set this at the Ontario tax rate because I'm going to be in person at the show and I live in Ontario. So I'm just going to charge the Ontario tax rate. There is something that says that if they purchase in out west, they have to pay that tax rate. But I think the 13% covers me. So that's what I do. Can we redirect? What about taxes, shipping? Oh, Samantha, can you please confirm the password for the handbook? It's Artist with an S, 2022. Capital A, Artists with an S, 2022. Is that, I think that's correct. If that's wrong.
That's it. I just put it in.
Okay, awesome. And then can we just redirect users to our own sales platform from Eventney? Okay, I think if your product and people are finding you on the Eventney platform, you should be purchasing through the Eventney platform. That's how Eventney, I mean, that's how you're paying for this platform, where it's a small fee that we pay, that you pay them and we pay them. We pay a fee to use this platform, but it also, I think that you wouldn't really do that. I think if you're in person, that's fine. You just turn your store off. But if your store is on and people are finding you on the platform, I think they should be purchasing that product on the platform. If you don't want to sell that product through this platform, I would say don't put it on the platform. Maybe just put a couple of images and push people to your website. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that was my question. Yeah, that was my question. The reason I asked that is because how long does the our setup on Eventney last? Like if it's a lot of work setting it up, and if it's only up there for like a couple of weeks, and then it's worth it, right?
It's actually really quick to set up, but what you can do is you can just profile a few images of yourself and then have your website listed there, right?
Okay, but how long does it stay on Eventney? Like is it like there for in perpetuity, or does it last only a couple of months and it gets canceled because of the show?
So the event, so your platform and your store will never ever close unless you turn it off. But the event closes at the end of the event. So they won't find it through our event link anymore. But if you have your link, you can use it as a shop platform. So that's what happened to someone before is they shared their own individual link.
This link here.
Yeah.
So if you share this link here, this will always go to your profile and your store. So for example, 7 months from now, if you want to use this link to sell your store through your e-commerce, you can.
Yeah. So what we've done too, and we've encouraged people to do is think about having, I think Marjolaine really talked about this one year, about having a specific collection or preview of specific work for the show, and that's what she put on her store, and that's what she would recommend. You're kind of highlighting that, and then after the show you can say, oh, if you missed anything, it's still live, I'm keeping it up on the platform for a couple of weeks, and then maybe in a couple of weeks put it up on your website, so that you're kind of like it's sort of like special for this event. Now it's different for every artist, but that's some artist strategy. For something like this, have a specific collection or a specific number of pieces. Just because we say you can have 30 pieces, you don't have to put 30 pieces up. But I would say you should profile yourself here, because this is where we're going to push people.
Can I ask a question? I don't know if you hear me or not.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I did put this in the chat room, but you go very fast and you're amazing, but you haven't, I'm a little confused. I'm having somebody help me set this whole thing up. You said this is going to be recorded, so how do I get this back? Everything that you're saying tonight, so that
there'll be a link. So once it's actually uploaded, there'll be a link probably to our YouTube site, which will show the recording.
Yeah. Sorry.
So there will be a link.
So where am I going to find this link?
On our YouTube channel. It's all in the Artist Handbook, and Samantha's going to send it all out after this meeting again, our YouTube channel. And there's already really, really detailed videos where we've gone through very detailed steps on this. And if you see on this screen here, view your business page, and we have video tutorials. If you click on any of those, it goes through each step very, very slowly. And you can
what's the YouTube channel called?
We'll send you the link.
We'll send you the link. It's Artist.
You send it to me in my email. You'll send me You'll send me via email. You'll send me the link to the YouTube
correct
channel. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's in the artist. Everything's in the Artist Handbook, so everybody should be logging into the Artist Handbook. And it's almost one of the first things. Samantha, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's one of the first things in the Artist Handbook is all the links to the orientations and the information that they need. Correct, Samantha? Is it
it's right near the top. There's all the past orientations with different videos and in-depth Eventini tutorials, and then you can also find them on Eventini under your business profile.
So how do I get to the Artist Handbook?
I emailed it out to everyone at about an hour and a half ago. You should have got an email from me through Eventini.
Oh.
From the Riverdale ArtWalk account.
Yeah.
And I sent everyone the link with the password to log in.
Yeah, and you can go to riverdaleartwalk.ca, and at the very top it says artists. Click on that and you just type in the password that Samantha put in this chat here. Artists, capital A with an artist with an S, and 2022. That's the password, and that's the handbook. So just go to the website, artist, and then the handbook is right there. But Samantha also sent you a link right there as well.
Okay.
Let me see if there's any other questions here. I forgot my Eventini account code. Can we have it again? How? Okay. So when you go to log in, you just say forgot password. So long as you have the email that you created your account with, right? You can go into the Eventini where that little icon is, where Kate had that icon where she clicked in. That's where you're going to log in as well. There's a little login button. Just go to Eventini. I think it's eventini.ca. Samantha, you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong. We will make sure that we send that out, but it's just the Eventini website and the login for that, and you can just reset your password. If you get an ACC number, is your combination art business income?
I think we did that.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it then.
Anything else?
I think we've got
one quick thing you should know that I forgot about is that Eventini actually uses Stripe, not PayPal. And so you will have to set up your Stripe account. It will walk you through that when you first do your profile. But Stripe is like PayPal, if people haven't heard of it, but it's actually way easier to set yourself up.
So we have to set up a Stripe account.
But you can do that through the application of Eventini as you're setting up your profile.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. Easy. I think there's a video on it as well, but it's pretty easy to do. But yeah, it uses Stripe. Stripe actually plays better in the digital world than PayPal with websites. You don't need to charge tax. Okay.
Is that it for all the questions?
There's one here. Any tip on size of work for optimal online sales, large or small work? I would say do a mix. Maybe present yourself so that people can understand you as an artist. I don't know. I've sold mostly small ones online. Kate, have you sold big?
I've sold mostly small lines online, but people see the bigger ones online. and then kind of will sometimes come to the tent. So I think that the reality is that you probably have a sense of what sells best online yourself, potentially, if you've been doing this over COVID. But I think the small ones are an easier, spontaneous purchase. So I think it's always good to have those on your website.
Yeah. And I think there was a question earlier about, do you have to do you turn off your online profile when you're doing an in-person show? I think that's a personal decision to make. Some people actually use that, like say, oh, just go onto the Stripe thing and do that like pay that online, like especially if they don't have a digital, like a e-commerce platform on their website and they don't have a Square reader or something. That is something you can do. Most people wouldn't do that. Most people would take the payment in person. I think it seems. And
I leave mine live personally, because I figure that I've done a lot of marketing up to this show. So I leave my store live. And sometimes the paintings that are online are the same ones I have in my tent. And if I sell it in my tent, it's pretty easy to just go in and mark that one sold in your Eventany package. So that's going to be totally up to you, different people's preferences. But I think we should move on because we're getting a lot of logistics questions about grids and tents and stuff. So
okay, let's do that.
So we're going to move on to the logistics for the in-person show. So first we just have the key dates. So coming up on May 16th, your signed contract and waiver is due. If you have not already emailed that to me, please send it. It's artwalk@artistnetwork.ca. Also on May 16th, your payment is due for the Riverdale ArtWalk, and it was just one payment this year. I know some people were asking about that. We did change it to just one payment. So you should have received an invoice last week from Barb at info@artistnetwork.ca with your PayPal invoice. So if you can have that sent in by May 16th as well to confirm your participation.
And someone's asking, can we pay the fee for Riverdale with a credit card? Yes, you can. So even though it's a PayPal invoice, you can just not pay through PayPal. Like you just click, you can have the choice of paying with PayPal or your credem card. No problem.
And then coming up in June, on June 10th, will be the Aer Event Rentals, which is formerly All Cargoes. That's our event partner. Your order form, if you want to rent a tent or any other rentals, that will be due on June 10th, and we'll go through that in a little bit. And then June 17th is the Friday of our event, and that will be the optional tent and grid load in the evening on the Friday. And then June 18th and 19th is our show, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. This is our site map at Jimmy Simpson Park. So this is the map from last year, but it will be a pretty similar layout. We have about this many booths, so it should be similar. The only thing we don't have is the indoor section this year. So everyone will be outside in the park. And it's just off Queen Street there. Next is the Artist Network booth. So our booth will be at Queen Street and Booth Ave, and that's where you'll come if you have any questions or need clarification on anything throughout the show. COVID restrictions. So we are expecting to have no COVID restrictions in place at the time, but if any do come into effect, we will follow any guidelines that come up. But currently there are no restrictions. Masks are not required, and there's no restrictions on your booths and social distancing and things like that.
Yeah, so there's a question about, are they going to have 3 walls on the tent? Because during COVID, we had 2 walls, and we're expecting that you can have 3 walls, you know, unless the city changes anything or something changes. We don't expect to have any challenges that way.
Yes. Load in and load out. So load in on the Friday night will be tents and grids only, no artwork. If you want to come and set up on the Friday night, just send me an email, artwalk@artistnetwork.ca, and I will schedule you in. And then Saturday and Sunday load in, we will have a schedule, and that will be sent out to you as soon as we have it ready. There will be the curbside drop off on Queen Street or Booth Ave, and that's where you can unload your items. You'll have a 15-minute slot to unload. You'll unload everything. We'll have some volunteers there to watch stuff, and then you will have to go and remove your vehicle, park it, and then you can come back and load your art into your booth. It will be a lot of people trying to unload, so just follow the schedule that we send out to everyone, and hopefully we can get everyone unloaded in a timely manner.
Yes,
and then
sorry, generally the timeline for that is like 8 o'clock in the morning to 9:30. So,
Yeah.
so just if for people for planning, like you don't have your specific 15-minute schedule. So if you have a conflict with something like that, just email Samantha. Like if you have to be there early or you can't get there till late, just she'll try to accommodate you in the schedule. And then the reason we do the Friday night is really just to help people. So if you wanted to, so there's not as much pressure that first morning to kind of load up your tents, but that schedule is usually quite late. So, and that's because we have to mark the park on Friday. All cargos have to come in and set up all the rentals. So the rentals will be in place and all cargos will set that up, but don't come Friday night expecting to be able to hang up your grids and your tent's not there, tent's not set up. All cargos has a schedule that they follow, which makes sense to them and helps them do it kind of as quickly as possible. So we just ask that if you do come on site Friday night, the reason that we do a schedule is because we just have to have so many people coming into the park at one time, and we want all cargos to have space and to accommodate and be able to set up the general park first, and then you can come in. But you can drop off your tent and you can drop off your grids and you can drop stuff like that off on the Friday night.
Yes. And then load out on the Sunday after the show. There's no schedule, but you can just load out at your own pace. And there will be some volunteers there that can help with the watching of materials. But similar to load in, just unloading.
We would just ask too that you really be good about coming in at your load in time, be as fast as possible so that everybody can come in as quickly. Queen Street's busy, so we can't really be having cars just hanging out there for a while.
Yeah, and definitely because we have to permit that, they're out there ticketing. Like it's like, oh, I applied for a permit so we can do it, but now someone's going to come and ticket people, and they will. If you leave your vehicle and it's like unattended or whatever, you'll get a ticket. So just please be aware of that and plan accordingly. Like if you need extra help, just plan it, ask a friend to come help you unload.
And then for parking, the parking lot at the Jimmy Simpson Community Center is a no access zone. So that's only for their staff to park in that lot. You're not allowed to park there. And you are responsible for your own parking during the show. So there are some green P lots nearby that you can park in. There's one at Dundas and Carlaw that has about 110 spaces. Another one on Broadview, just north of Queen, that has about 92 spaces. So those ones are a good option. And then there's also street parking wherever you can find it in and around the area. There's several options for you. This year, the elementary schools are not available for parking because they have other programs going on the weekend. So we don't.
If you're not from Toronto, I would strongly recommend downloading the Green P parking app. So you can actually get a warning when your parking is going to be expired if you're on the street, because it's easy to get kind of caught up in the day and then find yourself you have tickets.
And you can add time to it from your phone. You can add extra payments and things like that. It's really easy to use. That's a good idea. Travel, make sure you plan your route. If you're also not from the area, it's a good idea to look at any road closures or anything, construction that's going on in and around that area or wherever you're coming from. So there is a link. This is on the handbook as well, just to the Toronto Road Closures website. You can pull up the map and look at where things are going to be closed or any construction. So it's a good idea to plan ahead so that you're on time for your load-in slot. Overnight storage. So we're just confirming this right now. We're working on it, but we do expect to be able to use the Jimmy Simpson Community Center as our overnight storage area in the gym there. So this will be for any of your large and heavy artwork that you want to store overnight on site. This will be your responsibility to load it into the overnight storage, and it's at your own risk. Please be respectful of the other artists that are in the area and respectful of their artwork. Just be as careful as possible when you're loading stuff in and out. And it will be locked at the end of the day. You'll have, I believe it's about an hour after the show closes to load in.
Yeah, it's only an hour. So you'll need to move quickly to get your large pieces in there. It's not intended for everybody to put all their work in there. We really can't do that because we don't really have, we're not clearing out the entire gym. There's going to be stuff on the wall. So you won't really be able to lean things and rest things on the wall. It's kind of going to be like the middle part of a gym. Imagine the center part of a gym that you can drop stuff in an area. So think about your cart or what you're going to put your stuff on and how you're going to manage that. Because it's not like there's a wall there, or carts there, and everything's going to be gridded off and taped for you. It's just an open area that people can use freely. And so you'll have about an hour, and then you'll have about an hour and a half in the morning to get whatever out. So I think we'll open up at 9:30 till about 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Or did I say 9:30?
So
I think 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
If you need to get in there earlier, let us know, because I think there might be someone on site at 9 o'clock, but they're not expecting us to open the door till 9. This is all to be confirmed this week,
Yes.
but we're pretty sure that it's going to go through.
Hey, we've had a request to slow down a bit on the logistics because it's a lot to process. No, that's fine. So if people have some specific questions, if you want to put them into the chat, I'm trying to answer the chat answers as quickly as possible too. If there's kind of any specifics.
I think there's some specifics in regards to the map. Samantha, can you just go back to the map and we'll just show people what's on that map? So one of the things somebody was asking is washrooms. So there's washrooms within Jimmy Simpson Center. We will have porta potties on site, and I'll just really recommend use the inside washrooms because they have really good caretakers that clean those washrooms regularly. So, we are paying for those washrooms to stay open half an hour after the event's done. So you'll have half an hour after the event closes at 6 o'clock to run over there and use the washroom. And the washrooms will be open, I think, by 9:30 in the morning, 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning.
So about the same times as the storage, the overnight storage.
And just a quick question on the storage. So the storage is really designed so that you don't have to kind of carry your large pieces back and forth. So for example, your small pieces, you should be able to kind of take to your car. I personally have like a wagon or a cart. I have a wagon or a cart that I use to take the stuff from my tent to my car and then bring it back to the tent the next day. So do not assume you're going to be able to put everything in storage. It's really just for large pieces that might get damaged if you transport them.
Right. The Artist Network booth, Samantha, if you want to just highlight where that is. Oh, sorry, on the map.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so the Artist Network booth is going to be like along Queen Street there. There's first aid there, lost items. That's where you're going to go to have your questions answered. So there'll always be a staff member there or a phone that they can phone a staff member. So Barb will probably be in there. Samantha might be in there as well. I'm accessible during the event. I'm going to actually be showing as an artist at the event, but I'm accessible as well. If you have questions or concerns, I'm happy to talk to you at the event. Me too. And Kate as well. And there's other board members who are in the show as well, but really I'm available, and there should be somebody in that Artist Network tent that can find somebody pretty quickly for you. I think that's good for the map. I don't see if there's any other questions about that. There's a bunch of questions about the map, the tents and the rentals and costs, but we're getting to very, very soon.
Let me just see where I was. Okay, so was there anything up until the storage?
No, I think
we addressed those.
Good. Yeah.
Okay. Food and drinks. So we are not going to be having any food or drink vendors on site in the park, but there are plenty of restaurants and things down Queen Street and in the area. But it's always recommended that you as artists plan ahead and just pack for the day. It's good to have snacks and drinks, and it's going to be hot out. So definitely bring what you need, unless you know that you're going to have someone coming to cover your booth so that you can pop out and get food. But there is stuff in the area if you need to, lots of coffee shops and restaurants and things like that.
Just a small recommendation on your lunch choices. I would recommend choosing something that's not super strong, onions, tuna, things like that give you kind of wicked breath. Because if you're eating in your tent, you often don't have the opportunity to brush your teeth, and that can be kind of gross.
Yeah, and I'd also say a good thing that I like works for me all the time is those hydration tablets, or they're like they're really great little tablets that you can pop into your water that have electrolytes in them, and I use them all the time at shows. They really help me stay hydrated. I know that it's only June, but sometimes you can have a really hot day and it's just long days, and they really do help. You can get them in health food stores. You can get them in I think sports stores. Like Mec has them, and all the health food stores have them. They're great.
Perfect. Okay, and volunteers. So we will have some volunteers on site, and they will be in and around the Artist Network booth. You'll see them in the red and white striped aprons if you need to find a volunteer quickly. That's how you'll identify them. And they will be there for load in and load out to help watch all of your items on the curbside drop off. And then as well to do artist relief throughout the show. If you need a quick break, they can watch your booth. And maybe Angela can talk a little bit more about.
Yeah, so we just would like you to be respectful of that. Like, so volunteers, I'm not sure how many we're going to have with COVID and everything, but I think we'll probably have a good handful because I think there's a lot of students that need volunteer hours. But just be respectful. Like, don't leave a volunteer in your booth for half an hour. I tell volunteers, if they've been in a booth for 15 minutes and the artist isn't coming back, unless they've really, like, they have an issue, a health issue or something like that, or a concern that they're addressing, then, you know, just tell their neighbor that you had to leave and you had to move on to somebody else. So just kind of be respectful of people's time. If you're like popping out to get something to eat or you're addressing something, just let them know. I always say it's really good to have a little card with your phone number, because as much as the volunteers are happy to talk about your work, like maybe if you have a volunteer come in, maybe point out a couple things for them. Here's my business cards. This is how you can reach me if somebody's interested in a piece. Make sure you take your cell phone so that they can, that if somebody does come into your booth and they want to talk to the artist, because that's one of the reasons that people come to these shows, they really want to talk to the artist, that there's a way for them to reach you and find you.
The reality is as wonderful as the volunteers are, they're never going to be able to talk about your work and sell your work the way you are. So if you're away from your tent for a long period of time, you have to just know that that's going to probably affect your ability to contact with buyers and potentially sell work.
Okay. Sponsors. So we have Aer Event Rentals. You'll see that name a lot. It used to be called All Cargos. I know that might be a little bit confusing to artists who have done the show in the past, but All Cargos is now Aer Event Rentals. That's their new name. So that's who we are partnering with for all of the tents and rentals that people might need. And then we have Above Ground as well. And we are hoping to have some artist awards. We're just in the process of confirming those shortly. And then booth logistics. So I know this is where a lot of people have some questions. So we'll go through all of the logistics now. So rentals, here is the rental form. This is due by, like I said, Friday, June 10th is the deadline for all your rental orders. And that can be sent to raw2022@allcargos.com. This is all posted on the Artist Handbook. So you'll be able to just download the form right there. It has the email on the form as well. Just in that first little paragraph there, you'll find the email. So please send those in once you know which rentals you would like to get from them if you need any.
And just a reminder that they are a third-party vendor. So we really can't answer specific questions about the rentals, and it's really your agreement with them. So the best thing is to reach out to them, call them, or to email them, and they'll do their best to answer the questions. I think some people had specifics about cost, but it's all downloadable. Now, how much is a tent? About
the tents are $185 plus tax.
And that includes your weights.
Yes.
So, and then, but that does not. And so All Cargos, just to be really clear, they do pop up the tent for you and they'll put the walls up. So sometimes when you come to the park, you might have the tent up, but you might not have your walls yet. They'll go around and distribute all those walls later, and they'll put them up if people want them. But often people don't want the walls up right away, or they might not want the walls at all. So just communicate to the All Cargo staff. All Cargos will also be on site, and they also have a phone number that's available during the weekend that you can contact if you have any questions or problems with your booth or your tent or anything like that.
And that phone number will be uploaded to the handbook once we have the current number. We're just waiting to find out which staff member is on site, and then we will upload that to the handbook for you.
It's a quick question on the form right there you have there. It's like quantity of everything. They guys have like a one-fits-all package for everything, because you're saying hooks, sandbags, tent. Is there like just a general kind of like saying, just put me up on complete booth, everything I need kind of price?
Yeah,
I don't have to know how many hooks I need and how many sandbags I need. You know, like
well, the challenge will become, and we'll show some pictures coming up soon. Some of the challenge with that a complete complete package is that everybody has a different configuration. So you might want 2 grids and somebody might want a fence wall and somebody might want 2 fence walls. There's some different options that we have here, and we can show you some pictures of some of the rentals that you can put in. Some people will have a table and some people won't want a table in their booth. And then how many S-hooks you need is really relative to how many paintings you're going to hang up. Right. So I think you need to kind of think through all these types of things. All Cargos is there for some of these rentals. Some of these things you don't actually need to get from them. A lot of people take their own tables. I have my own table. I have all my own S-hooks. I have my own grids. Some people just rent the weights. Like they don't want to have to carry weights in the park. So they have their own tent, but they just want to rent the weights. So there's not really one size fits all in regards to the rental. And that's why it's segmented out. But definitely the tent itself comes with the weights.
And I mentioned that in a question earlier about, so you have your own grids. Is it worth, like if you're doing a couple of shows a year, or let's say 1 a year, is it worth buying a grid or just renting? Is there an opinion on that?
I think my personal opinion is it's probably worth it to buy it if you have a place to store it. I think storage is a problem for a lot of people in Toronto or in a small home. My grids, when I say I have grids, I actually have these fabric ones that I bought, which are just awesome. So they roll up and they don't take up much space. They're actually under a bed in my house. So it's not really a problem, but I think it depends on your own space and how you use them. Often people do use the grids and they have their own grids. I would say about 40 to 50% of the artists rent grids and fencing. And maybe 50-55% of the people rent tents. Like if you're doing more than 1 or 2 shows a year, like if you're doing 2 or 3 shows a year, it might be time to invest in getting your own tent. But it also has to do with the logistics of setting it up. Some people don't have the physical ability to do all that. It's already a long show. So there's different reasons why different artists, I guess, invest in having all their own materials there. Some people can't fit it all in their vehicles. So for them, it's easier to pack their art. They don't have to worry about anything else. They come there and hang up their art.
So I just put in the chat, there's actually, if you want to purchase your tent, apparently Costco right now has the 10-foot by 10-foot tents on for about $350 or something. There's also caravan tents where you can actually kind of build your own a little bit in terms of if you want steel legs or aluminum legs or whatever. I've also put the link into the Flourish walls, which you will see, which is almost like a mesh fabric. They're quite expensive. So if you're going to do Flourish walls, you're probably going to be looking to kind of do a lot of shows. The other thing is within the internal Facebook page, there are a lot of artists, if you're a member of the Artist Network, who are not doing shows anymore, who might be selling their tents and their walls and their grids and everything. So it's really your own decision, but there's lots of options.
Right.
And so, I mean, right now it's saying 10 by 10. I mean, that's a typical size that every kind of show is ever going to be at. So so it's a good investment. It's not going to be.
And white is better because we don't mandate white tents, although they look much better and the art shows much better in white tent. There are some shows that do mandate white tents. So I would go for white.
Yeah, well, we do mandate white tents for ArtWalk in the Square, but for Riverdale, we do not. Yeah. So Samantha has a picture here of the typical All Cargos tent. Or I say All Cargos. See, I can't get it right.
That's all right. So this is just kind of an example of a setup. So it has the 10 by 10 white pop-up canopy tent with the white walls, and the weights are on there. And then this shows the 6 by 10 freestanding grid walls. They also have some folding tables in there, which you can rent, the 6-foot or 8-foot folding table. You can also get black plastic folding chairs. These tents are not 100% waterproof. We just want to make that very clear to everyone. So it's always good to have stuff that you can protect your artwork in the event of rain.
Yeah, like if the forecast, I would say the forecast is calling for rain, think about tarps and always like, I mean, one thing I use is those plastic sheets, those plastic like painter sheets or whatever. I just have a couple of them in my bin that I can just pull that out quickly and cover a wall. So I think it's a pretty good thing to plan for rain, hope for the best, but plan for rain just in case. And I just also want to say, when we're looking at the All Cargos rental form, for those who have been in our shows before, All Cargos has had this other tent that they've had this canopy that's been available that is 100% waterproof and everything. It's not going to be available this year. It's just with COVID and everything like that, staffing has become an issue, and site logistics has become a little bit of an issue. And so they're not doing that this year. It's a lot more work to move, and it comes from a different warehouse, and they're just not going to be setting those up at the shows this year. So I'm sorry if that's going to disappoint a few people, but they just have the regular tents available. And just in regards to purchasing, just think about aluminum legs versus steel legs. There's a big controversy out there. Aluminum is much lighter and they're cheaper tents, but the steel, there's something about the longevity of the steel tent. I've seen tents collapse. They've almost all been aluminum leg tents. So I just think it's just something to consider when you're looking at the cost. That's one of the big variables.
Okay, and then we're just going to go through kind of planning out your booth and how you might want to hang everything up and some different options. So this is a kind of a good way that you can plan out your art pieces online ahead of time. It's always a good idea to figure out different sizes and how you want to hang things up on each wall of your tent. You are allowed to have 3 walls if you would like. There's no restriction on that, just to reiterate that from before. I know some people were asking, so you can have 3 walls. You can plan ahead online. I think this was something Kate did previously.
So I just want to talk to this a little bit, because it's one of those things where I see often first time artists who are doing these shows is they bring way more work than they can actually hang in their booth. And although it's good to have a little bit of extra stuff so that if you sell something, then you can replace it, because it's great to be able to send people home with their art, it becomes overwhelming for you to be able to figure out how to hang it, and also to be able to figure out where to store it. So I do this in Excel, and I create my Excel document so that each square is 1 inch by 1 inch, or a square, and each square represents 6 inches. And so therefore, the art that I put into the grid is actually the actual size, and I can see what goes together, and I can see if it's too busy or not busy enough, or I actually plan my booth probably a month ahead of time. And so I can actually, if I'm going to do 30-inch paintings, then I can know what colors I'm going to do, and I know it goes together, so that when I show up, things always change. But generally when I show up, I have a really good idea of what I'm going to bring and what I'm going to show and how I'm going to hang it and how I'm going to replace it. One of the other things that is much easier when you're hanging and planning your booth is to try and work in consistent sizes. It's really hard to hang your booth and make it look really professional if you've got some 18 by 20, some 18 by 22, some 16.5 by 14s, like a whole bunch of different sizes. Makes it much more challenging to kind of pull it together to look cohesive. So I would really suggest spending some time working on planning your booth. Excel works because you know that's the accurate size, as opposed to drawing it on a piece of paper where you're kind of guessing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, here's just some more tips on that. So plan it out ahead of time. Make sure everything is going to hang sturdy and secure. You want to have enough weights in case of wind. You want to have plastic sheeting in case of rain. It's always best to plan for every type of weather. Make sure your setup allows for a clear view from outside your tent. You don't want to be blocking anything at the entry point. It's good to have a chair or a table if you want to be able to sit down, or to have some print materials on. Just try not to block your exit or block any of your work. It's nice to have some signage in your tent, your name, your artist statement, have that, it catches people's eye. They know the name of your booth and your business. So it's always good to put that up somewhere. And you do have a specific size. You have a 10 by 10 space. That's what we're allotting for each booth. So please do not set stuff up outside of that.
So this particular image on this slide is a little bit deceiving, just because this is like a tent pop-up from during COVID. So that table, we would ask you to pull that table into your booth, because you don't want to block traffic from your neighbor's booth. So this is, and again, it only has the 2 walls. This was like a COVID type setup that we were showcasing. So I just want to point that out, that we would ask you to pull that into your booth. Like, you can't put your stuff outside of your 10 by 10 area. Yeah. Just in respect to your neighbors.
Yeah. And the walkways as well for all the guests. It's nice to bring a guest book and have some columns in there ready to go, or even filled out ahead of time with someone else's name. You can put like a friend or family member just to start the book off, have their name, get their email address and any comments they want to leave. Like we said, make sure you're ready for any and all weather. The show goes on rain or shine. Make sure you have stuff to packaging to protect your sales. So when you send someone home with a piece of art, you want to be able to package it nicely so that it doesn't get damaged.
And so also some of the ways, let's just slow down a little bit. Some of the ways to protect your work with the rain would be, so I don't know, like if you go to Home Depot, they have these like clear plastic, like drop cloth type things. They're like $2 or $3. Like if you, like I usually have like 4 of those in my bag. And what I do with those is, and maybe like clothespin, little clothespins, you can actually roll that up and put that at the top of your booth. Like if it is sort of calling for rain that day or spitting or whatever, especially for people who have work behind glass, like prints and photography and some of that sort of stuff. Like you just want to make sure that you're ready. So you can just unpin it and it just kind of rolls down on your wall, or just have it accessible in a bin that you can just pop that up on your wall if needed. So those types of clear plastic sheets work really well because you can actually still see through them. Kate, is there anything you could recommend for like, other than like having a tarp? So sometimes if it is calling for rain on the weekend, I've actually tarped the roof of my tent. There was a question here about talking about rain and how do you protect your booth as well. You can buy tarps and you can just put that up ahead of time before you raise your booth way, way high. And then your tarps are already sitting on there. I have a white tarp that I use.
I think the other thing that's super critical that you really have to do in every single tent is make sure you put your pool noodles or a hula hoop in the corners of your tent, even if it's a brand new tent, even if it's a rental tent. So what that does is that if you get a heavy rainstorm over the night, the rain doesn't pool on the canopy, and then the weight of that rain doesn't kind of collapse the tent. It ends up kind of sloughing it off the side. And I'm sure there's a picture in there.
I have a photo later on.
Yeah. So it does go rain or shine. So you need to be prepared for the rain, and you need to be prepared for protecting your art. And, honestly, there's been sometimes people get trapped in your booth because it's raining and you sell a piece of art to them. And when it stops raining, you send them off with their new babies.
Yeah. Yeah. So even like in this picture, you can see that this tent, the roof is sagging a little bit because it's Kate's old tent.
I just bought a new one.
You can see if it was raining, how the water would potentially pool in that. And I've seen, so I've usually been the one on site, like at 6 o'clock in the morning with a broom trying to get the water off of people's tents. And that's because the water pools in there overnight. I'm not saying that's going to happen this year, but if it is calling for it, please do be prepared and use pool noodles or hula hoops. And we'll show you a picture of that later, but it really does. I've seen it save tents. Like I've seen it save tents, and like tents just collapse because they don't have that.
Okay, so I think we're talking too fast. And so some of this is, first of all, your tent will come with your grids. They do come with white walls. So you do have some protection. Those are not waterproof. What Angela was saying with the plastic is you tie your plastic sheet to the top of your 10-foot wall, and you roll it up. When it rains, you can roll it down and close peg it to the bottom so that it actually protects the rain. So hopefully that is clear. So really what you need to do is just make sure you go out and buy some cheap plastic drop cloths. Have a couple of them in your bag. So when it rains, you can see what other artists are doing. We can come and help you, and you'll be able to protect your work and still have the show go on.
Okay, so now we can show some different examples of how artists hang up their work, different grids and walls and things like that. So these are the standard black grids. This is what you can rent from Aer Event Rentals. These ones are, I believe, 3 by 6 foot, I think.
Probably 2. They're usually 24 inches.
Okay, yeah. So there's a different size.
I think they're taller than 6 feet too. Yeah.
2 by 8. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to plan accordingly because they kind of can go quite tall. So you can see that Morgan has them standing vertically here. And then you have to also think, if you are renting those, how you're going to attach that. And so the zip ties are your real great friend at outdoor shows, because you can just zip tie that to the actual frame. And here you can see that Morgan's done it this way. So the weight of it is actually standing on the ground. The grid is on the ground. He's got large pieces, so he didn't really need it to go vertically to hang a whole bunch of smalls. So it works for his booth.
Mm-hmm. So watch the weight. If you are hanging them horizontally, it might be good to do it vertically so that the weight is on the ground. You can use chains to connect them, or zip ties. Lots of different ways you can do it.
Yeah, so you can see that last one there. There is also, think about how many grids you need high. So, so here that there's 3 grids high. I don't know if you actually ever need 3 grids high. Maybe he did because of the types of paintings that he was hanging up. And in order to compensate for that, he's used chains. Because if that was zipped, I've seen somebody put 3 grids high and zip tie it with thin zip ties. So you can also, your zip ties, you can get thin and you can get thick. Make sure you have some good heavy duty zip ties if you have weight. I've seen a whole wall of glass framed paintings just come
Don't freak them out, Angela.
I want them to be prepared.
No, but be prepared by don't think about the weight that's going on your tent frame. It's only a tent, right? It's not a concrete block. So if you use 3 heavy grids that you can barely carry yourself and expect your frame to carry it, it's a problem.
Yeah, use chains if you're going to hang 3 grids.
I personally would not hang 3 grids. That's just
me. So on that, you can see on this one beside her, she's only hung 2 and then she's done a vertical, right?
Yeah. Here we have the fence walls. So these are the freestanding fence walls that you can also rent. And these ones just stand on the ground. They go the full 10 feet and they're 6 foot high. So those ones are also a good option if you need to hang more pieces, smaller pieces, that can work really well as well. I think we have, and then here is a photo of some white grids. If those, some people buy these ones, these are not available to rent through Aer Event Rentals. All the ones you rent will be black, but you can buy white ones if you prefer it to blend in more with the tent. I think these are is this what you were talking about, Angela? The mesh.
No.
So this, I think this is like a fencing. It's like it's a different material. It's actually not the grid walls. They're actually a little bit lighter, and you can get them, I think, at Home Depot. I don't know where the white ones came from. They might have spray painted them, actually. But you can buy like metal ones. Like artists do all kinds of things like that. So there's just a lot of choice for your walls.
Yeah, lots of different options.
So the one that you just went back to, if you can go back one, this is the Flourish system. You can see like the one in the middle that attaches on all 3 walls that you can hang anything on. And I just put the link in the chat earlier with the link to Flourish. Those are about $800 or $900 and they're ordered from the US. So if you're going to do it, it's an investment and you have to call them early because they're going to have to ship them across the border.
Yeah. And if you do use those, if you do order them, make sure you use the very, very small S hooks because it has to fit through the grid. So think about the type of S hooks that you're going to buy and use as well to hang your work, that it actually fits over either the fencing or the grid, or in this case, in small mesh.
Here's another option. Maybe Angela or Kate, you can explain this one a little bit more.
This is Paul is basically, he's wired his pieces and he's got basically a 2x2 or 2x4 or something that he's actually then cut notches into, and then the wire hangs into the notches, and he's attached those panels to his booth. So this is where there's been a couple of questions about, can I use pegboard? Can I use whatever? You can do whatever you want to hang your art. You just have to, I would test it and make sure that it actually does work. Because once you get on site, you don't want to find out that your system that was great conceptually doesn't work in real life.
So these are just more of those wood pieces. I think she's got 2x2s and she just cut slots in them, and she just Janet just kind of hangs the pieces.
Yeah.
Again, same thing, wood. These are actually metal rods. She actually has metal rods. So the kind that you usually screw into a wall, like artists use all kinds of things. These ones, they're metal rods that you screw into a wall, and then they have these metal, like you can do like shelves on them. And she actually just puts hooks on them and hangs her painting on them. So it's like much smaller to pack than these big, huge grids. She's got big paintings and it works for her. And then there's the old standby chains. And the only thing I'd say about hanging all your work on chains is that it just, if it's ever a little bit windy or whatever, they kind of can tilt and move around a little bit. So if with a lot of small pieces, it's difficult to present really, really well, but definitely people still do use chains, and you can buy all different lengths of chains from Home Depot or a hardware store. And just make sure that if you do use a chain, your S hook fits through the whole of the chain that you've purchased. So you need to test that before you come on site.
Yeah.
And then as simple as this is plastic fencing. It's super light. Felicity zip ties those to the top of her booth, and she uses this, she just rolls it up. It's that, and it's just really light. She can carry it really easily, zip ties it to the top and just hooks it. It hooks her pieces on it. And then for 3-dimensional work, just think about your plinths and how you're going to display that. And also just remember that the ground's not level. So if you are doing like stands or anything like that in your booth, that you might need to kind of level up, and things that you could use to do that. Yes, so Caitlin says drapery hooks also work really well. There's a lot of people who use drapery hooks. Mm-hmm. And Julie uses zip ties to hang her artwork. That really helps. I've done big pieces like that when it's windy. And here's just some really creative things that people do. Just like there's all, like it's limitless to what you can do inside your booth to have a kind of unique creative space. And here's just showing the D-rings for hanging your work. So for with a lot of paintings, this isn't how you'd maybe sell. You won't keep those D-rings on to sell, but to hang, it's kind of important that the piece hangs nice and flat. And the easiest way to do that is to actually screw D-rings to the top of the piece, and then hook with your small S rings. I know it's a little bit blurry here, but you can see a small S ring, and then you can see a D ring. And then here you can see a small S hook and a D ring on a chain. And really it's just, if it's at the top, it's very easy to hang up and take off, versus like the wires at the back, or like things moving back and forth. But it's just like an option. I know with some people's framing and stuff, they can't do that. But if you do have that option, buying a whole bunch of extra D-rings and just putting them in the top corners really works well.
And it's really important. Well, not important. It's much easier though if you have your D-ring that pokes up over the top of your piece of art, which seems kind of counterintuitive because you would never hang it that way, but it is easier to do. D-rings you usually get them at hardware stores. The place that I get mine is Desairs. If you go in there, you can buy D-rings in bulk. You can also buy them on Amazon.com. Yeah, let's see if I can find a link. Post it.
And then this is just reusable ties. They have reusable locking ties that you can use. There's all kinds of different ways to tie. Zip ties work really well, but there's all different methods. This is just also how someone hung up their work. It was just that it's very thin plastic. Like hardware stores are your best bet. Go around and look around, and you can find lots of things in hardware stores. Oh,
the other place actually that's awesome is Rot Blocks. If you live in Toronto, that they actually have great stuff. But I'm also going to put a link here in Amazon for D-rings.
So then one other thing you have to think about is not only hanging up your work, but how you're going to communicate what your work is, what the piece might be called, what the price is. And this is just think about how you're going to actually connect and what you're going to use for that. I strongly recommend that you actually have a tag versus sticking a sticker to the front of the work. I know some people do use stickers, but I would say
you should not do that. It doesn't. It devalues the work.
Yeah, I think so too. At any rate, people use things even like the name tag cards. People have used those and stuck those on. People use, like, there you can see a drapery hook. It's really hard on the bottom left, but that's a little drapery hook, and someone hooks little tags on that. People use as simple as like pins, if depending on what their wall is. But you know, even like stickies or tape or anything like that, or stickers. Just think about how you're going to communicate what the piece is and the price.
And then here's just the link. I think Kate put it in the chat as well. Caravan Canopy or Caravan Global Canada. If you are looking to buy a tent, we have the contact email there, and they have aluminum and steel frame 10 by 10 tents available. And then here we have a photo showing the pool noodles or the hula hoops to protect from rain.
So you can see, especially in that first picture, they actually go in the corner. So from one corner to the other, and they kind of loop up the corner and hold it up.
So that's a good option too.
I would say it's not a good option. It's a necessity.
Oh, yeah.
You do nothing else, bring your pool noodles.
Yeah. Don't scare people, Kate.
I'm not, but you know, the pool noodles are so easy and they're so cheap. They're like $4 at the Dollarama, right? And they just help a lot, save a lot of pain.
Yeah, they definitely do.
All right, and we're on to part 4.
Should we see if there's any questions?
Do we have any questions?
I think I've tried to answer them as they go, but
Yeah.
4
thanks.
pool noodles, 1 in each corner.
Yeah. Some people do 6. I don't know if you need that, but for sure 4. I don't see any other new questions. I don't think that we didn't answer. If we didn't answer your question, please repost it.
Weights are mandatory. So if you rent your tents, you do get the weights with them. They have to be 40-pound weights on each leg. So they're pretty heavy duty. You can make them out of, I've seen people make them out of concrete. You take a pillar and you fill concrete with them, or a play sand. You can't really use water bottles because they're not heavy enough. I personally hate schlepping weights, so I rent my weights and they're delivered to my tent and they're picked up afterwards.
I use ABC pipes. So I have an ABC pipe, and then my husband like put concrete in them, and we put these really big hooks on them. And so because he carries them for me, it's awesome. But and then I just use oh my goodness, what's it, the stretchy cables, zip ties and stretchy cables. I just put them on my legs, and that's enough weight. But water bottles, like a small, like a little water bottle thing, like a chuggy water, like you think it's really, really heavy. It's not 40 pounds. It's going to be like about 5 or 10 pounds. And it's just not enough weight. I've seen tents roll across Queen Street. So if you really need to make sure your tent is weighted, it's your responsibility to keep the entire environment safe. So you need to weight your tents.
Yes. Okay. So no more questions. We can move on.
Oh, I think we're good.
Okay. Is it being recorded? Yes, it's being recorded, and we're going to upload it. It usually takes a couple of days. We have to get the link, and then we have to upload it to YouTube, but we'll have it available soon.
Yeah. So by the end of the week, hopefully I'll email out the link to everyone with both sessions. There's a session tomorrow night as well. So I'll send that one out at the same time, both links to the videos.
Yeah. So next, I think we're going to talk about like how to rock your booth and how to sell your work, but we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that tomorrow. We have a great panel available to answer questions and to share their top tips on what they do in booth, and also pre-event to sell their work and to soften their client groups, and actually to follow up with sales. But we'll just go through a little bit of tips and tricks here as well.
And that's at 7 o'clock tomorrow, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think, Samantha, did you send out the Zoom link? I know that there's a registration online, because usually we have registration, but I think you just sent out the link, right?
I sent out both links. Yeah, the link in the email that you got with this link, the one for tomorrow's session is there as well.
Okay.
Same time on Zoom.
Same back channel.
Yes. And we will have a suggested packing list, as well as a document with some tips that will be uploaded to the Artist Handbook soon. So make sure you check that regularly. We're always going to be updating it with new content as it comes available. There we go. And just some tips for on-site. So it's always good to consider arranging having someone come and sit with you, or even just pop by to give you a break. And we always recommend that you make friends with your booth neighbors. They can help you out if you need to pop and grab something to eat or run to the washroom if there isn't a volunteer available. It's always nice to talk to your neighbors and just make friends early in the show.
I think I just want to sort of state one thing, sorry to interrupt, is that
that's okay.
One of the reasons that doing these shows is so powerful is not just to be able to get the word out and sell your art, but it's also to really build your artist community. And by being connected to the artist community, it provides so many other opportunities. So absolutely get to know your artist friends. I would also suggest that you want to really consider whether or not you want a friend in your booth at the whole time. It can work for some people. I've also seen sometimes that's a challenge because your booth becomes crowded. With COVID, I think we want to be really careful about not making people feel uncomfortable coming into your booth. And I've had friends who just want to talk to me and catch up, and that's cool, but I'm not there to talk to them. I'm there to kind of like share my art and sell my art. And so I would just caution that you want to be careful about who you invite to hang out in your booth. It can sometimes be a good thing and sometimes not.
Definitely. And like we said, we will have limited volunteers, but we will have volunteers on site to help if you need relief in your booths. They'll be walking around and ready to help. We recommend you bring money for food and drinks. There are some things in the area, but we will not have any food or drinks in the park on site. Bring a hat, bring sunblock, your phone, like we said, water and snacks. Angela talked about the rehydration pills that you can put in your water. It's always good to have. Hopefully we'll have nice sunny days in June. and clothing for all weather possibilities. You never know if it's going to be windy or rainy. So always prepare.
I always say that one of the most important thing is your shoes. I have to say at all these events,
Honestly,
shoes. And don't wear the same shoes every day, like both days. I change my shoes sometimes in the middle of the day just to give my feet a break. And it actually really, really helps. Really gives me a lot more support. And I just feel so much better. I think like even just, or like if you're sweaty, one person like a lot of people do, and if it's your first show, sometimes you don't think about that. Setting up, you get all sweaty and you're hot. And if it's a really sunny, warm day, you will get hot and sweaty. And then like your clothes, like maybe take a clean shirt or something like that, right? So just think about making sure you're comfortable, because if you're comfortable and you're having a good time, it's going to project to the audience as well.
Definitely.
I just want to point out one thing, just because we did talk about volunteers here and we didn't really mention it when we talked about the volunteers, but we are looking for volunteers. So if you are associated with a school, if you have your own students or cousins or nieces or nephews or anything like that are looking for volunteer hours, we do give volunteer hours that the schools use for high school students. We do ask for the volunteers to be in high school or going into high school to volunteer at our events. But if you're associated with the school, if you can help out finding volunteers, if you have a network of friends that is looking to get involved in the arts community, please let us know.
I think what Angela's saying, we don't want students that are younger than high school, but if you have older friends or friends that just want to help out and they're 45, that's also totally cool.
Yeah.
And you can send any contacts you might have, or just anything like that, send them to my email, artwalk@artistnetwork.ca. That'd be great. And we can coordinate, or if you just want to let us know that you have some people who are willing to help out.
And we have a couple people already in the chat that say they do have some kids and some contacts. That's great.
That's great. You can send them my way.
There's also some questions here on payments and stuff like that, payment program. So we are going to talk a little bit about that. And then liability insurance. I don't think that's in this presentation, but I actually just did a little bit of research on that. So I can I'll send Samantha some names of some organizations that do actually provide insurance. But it just varies. You can get you can get it for shows, but you can also pay an annual fee that a lot of artists do. So we strongly recommend it, but so we will send out some names of some companies.
I know someone had just posted in the ArtWalk Facebook group a few days ago about that as well. And some of the artists were giving their recommendations of people they use or companies that they use for insurance. So if you are a member of the Facebook group, I know there was a post on that a few days ago. And just some more tips, maybe Angela or Kate can talk on this.
I think these tips are really about, so you've got the logistics, you've got your D-rings, you've got your weights, you've got your hooks, you've got your paintings in the space. And now this is when the fun begins. And, we know that people come to these shows, as Angela said, to meet the artists and to buy from the artists and talk to the artists. So this is really an opportunity to really connect with people. I would suggest, I personally don't usually have a chair in my booth. I try and stand. I try and be as engaging as possible, but don't overtalk them. But I think it's really important to have, especially if this is your first show or if you're still an emerging artist, to really kind of practice and think about how you're going to talk about your work. What is your elevator pitch? How are you going to say what your work is about in a short, concise way that allows other people to kind of connect with the work? That's really important. Your attitude and your vibe is super important. Like if it's raining and your feet hurt and you're sunburnt and you're having a shitty day, you still have to sparkle. You still have to pretend that everything is awesome, because that's really what people are going to respond to. And that's the vibe of the tents that they want to go into. So that's kind of really critical. A couple of other things to think about is, how do you want to, earlier Samantha said it's a nice to have a guest book. I would say that's a need to have. You need to be trying to really build as many people on your guest list as possible. Those are the people that you will continue to communicate with through the whole summer with the other shows you're doing, things like that. And those are the people that you will then send your newsletters out to, which is really important. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. There will be people that will criticize your work. There will be people that kind of think that they can talk you down. There will be people that want to know how long does this painting take you? They're trying to figure out your cost per hour. All of those things will happen. So it's good to think a little bit about how you're going to address those people. Are you going to do commissions? Are you not? Are you going to deliver the work? If someone wants to offer you 50%, are you going to accept it? If not, are you going to accept 40% or 20, you know, a 20% discount? Like, think about all those things ahead of time. So when you're asked those questions in the booth, it's not a surprise and you don't have to think of something on the spot. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that? Yeah, be attentive. I think I would really try not to be on your laptop, try not to even be on your phone. It's important to socialize. It's really important to kind of do the shots of your booth and put them on Instagram. I usually step out of my booth to do that, so it doesn't look like my attention is engaged elsewhere. If people are walking by, sometimes they're a little bit hesitant to come into the booth. So it's nice to kind of invite them into your space. I think it's always good if you can have a personal, you can try and make some sort of a connection. My work is all about color. So I will usually kind of say things like, oh, I love your orange shoes or something like that. It starts a conversation. It allows people to kind of have that connection. There's a lot of people that come to outdoor shows that are kind of intimidated to talk about art. They may be interested in buying art, but they don't really understand the conversation of art. They don't understand what's appropriate to ask an artist and what's not. So it's kind of up to you to drive that conversation, at the same time being aware of if you're talking their ears off and they're really trying to get out of there. You know, there's kind of that balance.
Yeah, there's often people who are just on the edge of your booth, just standing there, whatever. And I would say it's not really great to like go and solicit people all down the rows to come, oh, come here, see my art or whatever. But definitely solicit them and encourage them to come in. I'll say, oh, you know, are you enjoying the show? Oh, you know, do you, well, I paint in oils or whatever. Oh, if you want to take a look, you know, sometimes I'll even say, it can, with COVID especially, I'll say, oh, you know what, if you want to step in, I can just step out a little bit, give you a little more space, right? If you see people who are masked more and who might feel more comfortable with that, I back off and I give them a little bit more space. I think that there's different dynamics with COVID a little bit that you have to read the guests that are kind of coming in and around your booth.
Yeah. I think the other thing too is you'll sometimes find people will come into your booth. I find people come into my booth because I do resin. They're interested in resin, but they're not really interested particularly in my work. And they might kind of say, no, I really want something a bit more representational. And that's when I can say, hey, you should check out my friend Angela's work. You should check out my friend Helen's work. You know, you can send artists, you can send these collectors also to other people. And this is again where that community component really makes a lot of sense. So take some time before and after the show, maybe to do a quick tour of the show. So you get to see what else is out there, see the other kind of work of the people that are doing the show with you, know more about your community. It's also, I personally, as an extrovert, find out this hard is to know when to shut up. So it's important not to overtalk people. Say your bit, stop talking, let them talk. Psychology proves that if people do, the person who does the most talking has the most positive sense of how the conversation went. So of course you want them to do most of the talking and engage you and feel like that was a really awesome connection that they made.
Yeah. Yeah, you let them build the story.
Yeah. This is again, pre-stuff, like obviously assemble your printed materials. It's really important to, have your postcards. I personally have no problem if people want to take as many postcards as possible. The number of times that people have come back to a show with a postcard that I had 4 or 5 years ago happens more often than you'd think. So get those postcards into people's hands. Excuse me. I personally like to do different pictures on my postcards, and that actually helps me kind of to determine what is popular and what's not, what people are picking up and what they're not. Excuse me. Update your artist statement, your CV, post it so people can read it.
Yeah, so I would just say there is a question here for handouts like your business cards or your postcards or whatever. How many should you print? And I think, so I kind of print mine for the season. I print like 1,000 at a time. So and I have a couple different versions. So I would I don't know how much you actually go through a show, but you don't want to run out. I would say you need like 500. Kate, what would you say? Like
yeah, I agree.
At a show
I like to have postcards and business cards. I actually prefer the postcards. I like it if people take a postcard just because it's got more information.
Yeah, so on the back of my postcard, I have a tiny little bit of information about my medium because a lot of people don't understand it. And so I do a lot of talking about my medium. But also it has all your information on it. And then the front allows you to put I have different images on my postcard. So it kind of, like I'll say, oh, if this card has a little bit of a story about me on the back, and it has a similar painting to the one you're looking at, so it'll help you remember me. And I think that that actually helps. Oh yeah, great. And they take the card. But one thing is with your business cards and your postcards, make sure you write your booth number down. I know it's not a huge event, but sometimes people forget where they saw you. They forget what row they were in. They forget where you were. So write down your booth number and make sure your website's on there and all your contact information's on the cards.
Yep. I usually get my postcards from Vistaprint. So if you wait, and also if you're part of the Facebook page, usually when Vistaprint has a sale, 40% off or whatever, that usually goes through the community. So what I like to do is have my cards ready to go. And then when there's a sale, then I can easily leverage that.
Here's a little thing. Speaking of that, here's little things I'm going to hand out, actually little keychain things that are very representative of my work, whatever. So that's an idea. It's not postcards, just little plastic things.
Yeah, that's cool.
I don't know
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah,
and people likely won't throw that away. So it's a really good thing. Like I do think that people really keep them. I know somebody actually makes their business cards into like book. Oh my goodness, bookmarks. I can't say the word. Bookmarks. Yeah, you make them the size as bookmarks, so people keep them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then just a little bit about selling your work.
So really, it's three things, right? Attitude. You need to be willing to engage with people. Don't like be closed off and sit at the back of your booth, and bring your best work, right? Don't shy away from that. Show people what you can do, and really don't second guess your audience. I think that's what, like, just bring what you think represents you as an artist. Bring your best work.
Yeah, I think the other thing is there's been questions as to whether or not large or small pieces sell. I personally think it's always good to have a variety of pieces. I like to have a really large piece at the back of my booth, which is going to draw people in. And also it says to people, yeah, I do large work. The reality is if they happen to just come across the Riverdale ArtWalk, they were walking their dog, they're probably not going to buy a $3,000 or $4,000 painting. And so I always like to have smaller pieces, which a friend of mine calls my gateway drugs, that are easy to sell, they're easy to buy, and people keep those and they kind of remember me from them. So I think it's very good to have a little bit of both. But then the other thing that's really important is that not all of your sales are going to happen that weekend. It's really every single one of those conversations that you have is a potential sale down the road. Some people are just not quite ready. Some people haven't made their decision yet. Some people are in the process of moving into a new house. So, if you don't sell as well as you were hoping at the end of the weekend, don't despair. Send your follow-up email out, your newsletter with the contacts you've gained from that show and continue that relationship. Super important. The other thing I would say is really important is also to not prejudge when people come into your booth as to whether or not they can afford your art or not. Because you can often be surprised, like the couple that looks young and looks like they have no money, just got married and have an art budget and they want to spend a couple $1,000s on their house. So treat everybody with respect and really try and engage with every single person you can.
Yeah, and just to kind of add to that, sometimes like an art buyer needs to see someone. Like I know there's a lot of people who haven't shown or done outdoor shows, or maybe just not with us. But really, sometimes people need to see people a couple of times, right? Oh, I've seen this artist. Oh yeah, I remember you from last year. I, as an event organizer, have had people reach out to me 5 years later, trying to find this artist that they saw at the Riverdale ArtWalk, right? And like they explained to me the work, and I'm like, oh, I think I know who that artist is, right? And they've gone back and they've purchased art from that person. So you just never ever know when someone is going to be ready, but sometimes it just takes a little bit for that sale to come to fruition. And sometimes you have to be in multiple shows and just present yourself in multiple ways, right? Online, in person, just be willing to engage with people in all those formats. And then I think there was another question here about, I thought it was about handouts and stuff, but oh, I was just going to say about posting your story and your statement. Some people just have like a bio that's really smally written or whatever, but I've also seen people, I think this is pretty successful in booths, depending on how much work you have and what you want to present, to actually have a sign like your statement, like, what is it that's special about your work, right? Like, what are you actually presenting? And they might have like 3 or 4 like one sentence or something, or 3 little thoughts or something like that. And I think it just shares that elevator speech in a written format. If someone's not ready to engage with you, if you're busy talking to someone else can kind of get an image or impression of what you're about and why you do the work that you do. If you're wondering about how to present your work, like I think Kate communicated a really important thing. Like she likes to put at least one big piece at the back of her booth to kind of grab your attention, and then you have your sale, like a lot of smaller sales walls or whatever. And I think that works really, really well. If you're curious to see images, if you go to our Facebook page, you'll be able to go in and look at past events. And if you click on them, and many of our events, we try to go through and take pictures of artists in their booth. And so you can kind of see, if you click through them all, you'll see different people's presentations of their work. And you'll kind of see, oh, which ones look really great. Like, oh, and if you don't really remember from the last time you walked through an in-person event, it might kind of spark an idea of how to present your own work.
Here we just have some on pricing.
Yeah, so I just say, like,
did you speak at all?
Oh.
I think you just
Sorry, did you speak at all about, or is coming up actually, about digital transactions at the booth? We all have, is there a facility to actually purchasing at the booth, or like Square, or is there some kind of
so I would
so the artists are responsible for all of their sales.
Right.
So the best thing really is to set up a Square account and have a Square reader. And that will allow you to do what you want. You can also process things through PayPal, or the Artist Network will process credit card sales on your behalf for a very small transaction.
Right, and that's what I was speaking to, because I remember seeing that in the documentation. So how does that work actually, if we're going to have the Artist Network helping us do the transactions? So maybe
you have to walk over to the Artist Network tent with your client, tell them what the process to put through. I would suggest that unless you have a real aversion to having a Square, it's a lot easier to set at your booth and have someone tap their credit cards.
Okay.
You don't give them time to think too hard about whether or not they want to buy your stuff and walk away.
Right. No, that's excellent. Okay, but that's good to know. That. Thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah. So it's Barb. So Barb Lewis would be your contact for that. She's the Artist Network staff member who's going to process sales, and she is on site. She does it for a couple artists every single show. So yes, we're there to support you, but it's pretty easy to set up Square. You just need to have a phone, really. And the other thing I've seen people in some events, actually, they actually have a code. And people can put their phone up to it, and it actually goes to their website. Like if you actually have your own portal, and people can pay online that way with their credit card or whatever, so they don't touch anything. I was just at a show when someone did that, and I thought, oh, that's a good idea.
The other thing that people are doing now too, if you is that I'm finding that more and more people are doing e-transfer actually. So right in the tent on site, they have their phones set up now because of COVID, so they'll do an e-transfer. And then, you just have to wait for it to kind of be processed, which is usually really fast. So that's the best, really, because then you're not paying any credit card fees or anything like that.
Yeah, I definitely try to get my big pieces through as transfers. Or I do a lot of transfers. I think it works really well. And
there is no Wi-Fi in the park. So if you're looking, really you're going to have to use your data for all of these, options.
Yeah, so if that's an issue, that would maybe be a reason why you'd use the Artist Network. I think when Barb does do it, might take a couple of days for her, then send the payment back through to you, just because she processes some of the payments off-site, like when she goes back to the office. But she'll take all the information down and she'll process the sale for you. Pricing needs to be consistent across all boards. And I think what we're talking about is if it's priced a certain price online and you're in your booth and you have galleries, or you don't have I think you just want to make sure your pricing is consistent. So figure out what your pricing is and then be consistent in this show. You don't want to upset previous buyers, or it's just really unprofessional to have different pricing structures, and it's really not good practice to price differently than what you price with your galleries.
It creates anxiety for your consumers too, your customers, if they think they might be able to get a better deal or a different deal somewhere else.
And I would really recommend pricing. I find it frustrating when people don't put prices out. So, I mean, you don't have to put your prices out, but I find it's a little bit challenging. Like you have to ask somebody for the price of every single piece. Like it just seems difficult to me. Like it will stop some people, I think.
One more quick thing about HST. So you can only collect HST if you have an HST number. You only need an HST number if you're making more than 30,000 in 1 year, not a calendar year, but a full year with your income. So if you're making less than 30,000 of income, you do not need to apply for an HST number, which means you do not have to collect taxes. If you are, then you do need to register, which means you have to collect taxes and get to do all that fun accounting stuff.
So there's something here about red dots. I saw it pop up and then it kind of went away. I say yes. I think that people like to buy art from people who are selling. So I would say if you sell work, yeah, for sure, red dot it. So one of the things I do, and I think most artists do, is they actually just take the label from the art and they put a red dot on it and stick it at the side of their booth if they sell a piece. So that's another point, is to have work to refresh work that you sell. And I think for storage for something like that, I have a small bin in my booth where I actually have small pieces. That's where I keep my extra work. I might have larger pieces that I'll just refresh the next day, or I might have it in my vehicle. I do encaustic work, so that's difficult if it's hot out. But for some people, I don't think that's an issue at all.
I was going to actually ask this. It was going to be covered tomorrow, I imagined. But since you brought up the idea of red dots, right? How many people actually take their art with them? I mean, the idea of putting a red dot in means that they're going to come back later for it. So,
no, I think what Angela's saying is if you take the tag, that's what you put the red dot on. I personally think that if someone wants to take the art with them, I'm thrilled when they take it away.
Okay.
With a larger piece, sometimes you do have to deliver it after the show, or even sometimes I've delivered it like the Saturday night, but it makes for a long day.
Yeah. So I would say like 99% of people take the work with them at an outdoor show like this, right? Unless they're in the neighborhood, they don't have a vehicle and they're buying something larger, it's not that hard to drop something off, right? Like Kate said.
Here's just a little bit more about how you're going to sell. So like we said, tax, is that included? Do you need to charge HST? Do you want to offer discounts? Do you negotiate your prices? That's all things to consider before the show. Credit cards, if you're going to set up a Square account and have that, do you accept checks? Are you taking cash? However you want to take your payments, that is the responsibility of each artist to figure that out before the show and have their own system, unless you would like the Artist Network booth to process your credit card payments. You can do that as well. And yeah, just this is another slide on that. You can have us process for a fee. And then some tips on after the show. So follow up on any leads. It's a good idea to, or it's necessary, I guess, to follow up with all the customers that you meet, send some emails to the people in your guest book, thank them for coming to the show, let them know if you're coming up in any shows and any other information that's going on with your business at the time. And maybe Kate and Angela can talk on some other things after the show.
I think it's just really important to follow up. I think that, getting those names in your guest book is really important. And those are the people that you have the ability to follow up with. So it's even if it's a thank you, if it's a, hey, if you saw something you loved at the show and needed to think about it, please reach out. If you did a contest and you can kind of promote the winner. And then just make sure that those people you kind of continue to communicate with on, I would say at least once a month.
Perfect.
Yeah, so someone's asking a question here. So I guess they're new to Canada. It's their first show in Canada. So I don't understand if they live in Canada or not. So maybe you can let us know. But a real question about they haven't sold a painting here yet and they don't think they'll hit 10,000. How does that work for tasks? So again, if you don't hit 30,000, but it's 30,000 income. So it's not just if you have different revenue streams, you have to consider that. So I think it's related to your overall income, not how much paintings you sell. And I just don't know if you're from Canada or not, because that might, when you say you haven't sold here yet, I'm just assuming you are living in Canada. So I think just send us a separate email if you need to, and maybe we can help you a little bit.
I think it might be worth mentioning too, though, is, for example, let's say you're doing this art part-time, right? And you're making X number of dollars on some other business, but you're selling art on the side. I think it's $30,000. Yeah, just art on the side, not including your other income that you are making. It's just your self-employed income. So it's worth mentioning if people are part-time artists.
I think it's actually all your income. So if you sell $20,000 worth of art and you work at Starbucks and you make $15,000 and you do, I don't know, deliver firewood for another $7,000, that's over $30,000. So you should be collecting HST.
Yeah, I think so.
It's only 30,000 on personal income. If you're an
Right.
employee with another company, it's
Yeah,
that
you're
money
right.
is not included.
Right.
You're right. I'm
if
sorry. I
you
was
have
assuming
two
as well.
separate businesses, though, both would be included in the 30,000. Yes.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah,
lots of sites you can look up. The Ontario, you can Google Ontario small business, Ontario, things like that. There's tons of information online that you can find out and look up all of that about the registering for an HST number if you need to. So recommend go online and do some research on that.
Yeah,
So-
Carolyn, I think it's not employment income because you work for an employer and they actually deduct all your taxes.
Yeah.
That's different. If you were a consultant though, and you had multiple different places, then that would be the case. But I think, yeah, Samantha has a good idea. It's best to, talk to your accountant or reach out.
Do your own research.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is somebody who really needs help here. And so I think ArtWalk at artists with an S network.ca, just to kind of put your questions to Samantha. So maybe I'll just put that email in here.
Yeah, type my email in the chat.
And then if you have, and then Samantha will reach out to the right people if she can't answer the question herself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just there's a question about, do artists at Riverside include tax? That's up to the individual artist's personal financial situation and their income situation. So there's not a blanket answer for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think we're probably done because we
That's
still have a whole other session tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes, unless there's any other questions, but
You can always reach out through the email that I just posted here.
Okay. I'm going to take off my...
All right, well, I'm going to stop the recording.
Yeah, we can end the recording. And hopefully everyone can attend the session tomorrow. I did send the link to that as well in the email with this link, 7 p.m. tomorrow. And that one has a panel of artists who participated, and we'll have lots of tips for you on in-person selling.
Yeah, so I look forward to meeting everybody. It's going to be awesome. Hopefully we'll have fabulous weather and everybody will be anxious to buy lots of art.
Yeah, I can't seem to stop the recording, Kate. So I don't know if I have the privileges. So maybe
it will end when we end the meeting. So
okay, I just stopped it.